This is one of my favorite tips of all career advice. And it is so simple, and yet most people fail to utilize this. And it's called informational interviews. So what is an informational interview? An informational interview is just that. You are going to interview somebody and get information about the job you want. So when I first started out in my career, I thought I wanted to be in public relations. Public relations. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And then I went and interviewed people who were in PR. And I found out about that career. And I learned from talking to them that it didn't really resonate with what I thought it was going to be. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to go to HR. Yeah, I'm going to be in HR. I like people, people like me. HR is a perfect fit. I like to communicate. They are big communicators, right? So I went and talked to HR specialists. I talked to the head of HR in organizations that I wanted to work at. And I just picked up the phone and called them and said, hey, I'm interested in going into HR. Would you be willing to talk to me for 20 minutes? I could do it over the phone or in person. And I just want to ask you how you got to where you are and learn more about, your career. And unanimously, I never got turned down. People always offered to give me more than 20 minutes, and they shared with me more than I ever could have imagined. And the interesting thing is those two professions where I did those informational interviews for, I learned that, heck no, that was not the job for me. And it depends what it is that you're looking for. For me at the time, I thought I was looking for job stability. Now, that doesn't exist at all. But back then, that was still something that I thought I wanted. And when you go into HR, you talk to anybody that's the head of HR, they will tell you that the HR department is probably the first department to get cut when they are doing cuts. So I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. That doesn't mean you shouldn't go into HR if that's what your calling is. But for me, it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't what I was looking for, and so I moved on to something else. But I would never have known that if I didn't do an informational interview. So I have some questions for you on the sheet that are questions that you might consider asking in an informational interview, but don't hesitate to ask for an informational interview, because here's why. It's a footstep into the door of a company that you may be interested in and you can't get into. And it's a simple way to get into one. Build a relationship with a complete stranger who's already in the job and or with the company that you want to work for. Keep in mind, it is an informational interview, and therefore, even though you're asking many of their questions, they are also feeling you out. They are getting a sense of you. They're getting a sense of you by the types of questions you ask, whether you would be a good fit for the organization. If they know somebody, they will begin to get a sense of you. And if they really like you, you might want to ask, who would you recommend that I talk to? Do you have another friend or colleague? Any suggestions you can make? Then you can begin to utilize that relationship. But don't assume that you've made that connection. Ask if it's okay, and they will tell you yes or no. But know that they are getting a sense of you, they are getting a feel of you, and they are interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. So always be on your A game, and that means dress for an interview. Go in and be professional. Don't show up in your jeans and t-shirt unless that is something that is common in the industry that you're going into. The other thing that's going to be really important is your goals. Now, when I originally started this program, I had zero intention about going into goals. But it is clear from talking to people repeatedly, they're not clear on what it is that they want. They want a job. They think it's specific, but the timelines that they have aren't realistic. The reason why we did the dream job at the beginning is because it is critical that you know what it is that you want and that you be clear. Your clarity is going to drive where you're going and what you know. And those two things are going to get you closer to any job that you could possibly want than spamming your resume out in these systems, okay? And finally, the most important thing for your network is to maintain your network. Now, I'm going to give you a plan of action, but you must maintain your network.